Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ROI's weekly live stream training. Welcome. Happy Friday. My name is Jesse. I'm with ROI Safety Services, and I will be presenting on fire prevention. The material that we use is all OSHA. It's basically from the OSHA 10 and 30-hour courses that we provide, and we just go over each topic each week. We'll add stuff here and there. But the distinct thing that I want everyone to understand is that I'm going to go over this training with you, but I'm going to do it with 30 plus years of experience in how to implement it within your organization. And we primarily focus on how it works within the organization versus, reading some abstract document on how to do this and how to do that and how to be in compliance. My focus is for you business owners and for you managers, okay, the stakeholders of the business. Each week we do a very unique topic in the sense is we want to add our own understanding and how to implement it within your organization. It's not just having a document that says fire prevention training or fire prevention plan. It's more of how does this work? How do we make it happen? And how do we make it be effective? So again, this is straight out of the OSHA 10 course. Well, what are some fire hazards in the workplace? Well, pretty much everybody's going to have fuel of some kind, whether it be propane or diesel or gas or some type of flammable liquid. Every location that we go to has some kind of flammable liquid. And what causes a fire? What is some of the chemicals that we look for? We look for flammable, reactive, and explosivity. Okay, so those are the areas that we want to look at. Do we have these at our site? And if we do, where are they? Where are they located? And if there is a fire hazard, we need to notify supervisors, emergency response personnel. Some employees may need to have training on how to handle these flammable liquids. So those are the things we need to identify. Do we have propane? Do we have fuel on site? Do we have excessive amounts? And what is an excessive amount? How much propane can we have? How much paint can we have? And that all differs from where you're located. I had a client in the city of Long Beach who had 2 massive tanks of propane stored on site. And I did not know the regulations for how much propane you can have in that area. And we were shocked to find out that was way too much. And they unfortunately were shut down temporarily. And so this is the risk, guys. This is the reality of compliance. That if you're not in compliance and you don't know your risk, you could potentially be shut down by the city, by OSHA, by the EPA, by your other various agencies. So you got to know, you got to understand that you just can't store flammable liquids anywhere you want. You need to know the requirements. So fire hazards, improper handling of flammable liquids brings a great risk to potential hazards, to potential fires. When a flammable liquid is spilled, hazardous vapors begin to form VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, that could easily catch on fire. So we want to make sure that we understand that risk, okay? Other possible risks are transferring flammable liquids and making sure that you have them in non-conductive containers and transferring it safely to minimize the risk of having a fire. So looking at how are we transferring fuel. Oftentimes I'll go into a lab setting and they'll have some sort of solvent on a gravity-fed plastic container. And sometimes, there could potentially be a static risk there. But what we see most of the time is when they turn that valve on, the valve will stay open. It's not an automatic shut valve, which it should be an automatic valve that just shuts every time you open it up, it'll shut. And so oftentimes we'll go into labs and we'll find that they don't have a very simple safety device on there to automatically shut it. That's an area of potential high hazard. So looking at that and evaluating your area. What are some of the sources that you have at your site? Are you welding? Boy, if you're welding, you have a lot of risk. So you need to understand, do you have a designated area? Most manufacturing sites do welding, whether it be from a third or an outside source that comes in and fixes equipment, or it's done internally. Do you have hot surfaces, mechanical sparks, electrical wiring issues, and various other types of risks? They all need to be evaluated. Maybe you might have ovens that reach a very high temperature. A lot of aerospace companies require heat treat, so we have to have ovens on site. I have quite a few clients that their ovens, they get significantly high temperatures, and they are absolutely a risk. So evaluating all of your ignition sources and prevent fires from occurring. Proper maintenance, remove any combustibles, control fires that do occur, and detect fuel leaks. So these are things that we need to consider when managing any kind of hazardous or flammable liquids. And then housekeeping, housekeeping, housekeeping. Boy, I can't tell you, when I go into a site and I see really bad housekeeping, I know that I'm going to keep on looking. I'm going to keep digging, and every single time, with no doubt, I find more issues. Housekeeping is the first impression most people have of a facility. So housekeeping should be 100% dialed in. Keep work areas free of debris. So when I go into a site and I see rags everywhere, I see oil everywhere on the tables and the counter, or the counters and the floor, and I go into a lot of machine shops and a lot of mechanic shops, and there's just fuel. I can smell fuel, I can smell the oil, and I can see it's just a big mess. And that is a prime target for creating fires, especially as the summer comes and everything can become a much greater risk in terms of flammable and having issues with fire. So know what equipment you have available for preventing fires. So we want to have fire extinguishers, know how they operate, get fire extinguisher training. Fire extinguisher training is required every year. Get with your local supplier of the fire extinguisher. They might be able to provide it for you. Of course, ROI can provide that for you, but we need to know it needs to be done, it needs to be identified, and it should be done every year. And then sprinkler systems should be available. A lot of buildings, at least in various older communities, don't have sprinkler systems, so that is a significant risk. Fire doors, alarm systems, and then regular inspection and maintenance. And that really is the key, is good housekeeping, inspecting your facility regularly. And then when you see something like rags on the ground that are saturated in fuel or paint or some kind of solvent, pick it up and put it in an appropriate bin. The different types of classes of fire are A, which is an ordinary combustible fire. You have Class B, flammable liquids, gases, and greases. Class C is electrical, and then Class D is combustible metals. Now, fire extinguishers, whenever you see any kind of fire that's in the inception, at the very beginning of the fire, grab the fire extinguisher, remain calm, report the fire, and use the right type of extinguisher. 90% of the facilities we work with have ABCs everywhere. You may require other types of fire extinguishers depending on the industry that you're in. But again, that's something that one needs to evaluate. If it is your site, you need to know what your hazards are. You need to know how to mitigate those hazards and take a proactive approach to your safety. So use the PASS method. This is kind of the benchmark for fire extinguisher training, and it works. Pull a pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, and then sweep at base of fire. Very simple stuff, right? But it's not simple when you need to do it. I tell you that right now. It could be very stressful. I have been involved in quite a few fires where the employees have used local fire extinguishers, and the common denominator is there's never enough fire extinguishers around. In every situation I've dealt with, they've had to use at least at a minimum of three to five or different or yeah, 3 to 5 different fire extinguishers, not different types, but multiple fire extinguishers to eventually put out the fire. And that's just typical. Every single one that we've dealt with over the years have had that same scenario. Um, don't aim at the height part of the flame, go to the base. Fire extinguishers have a limited operation of 8 to 10 seconds, and that definitely is the reason why we had to use multiple fire extinguishers. And time is of the essence when dealing with a fire. Pull the fire alarm. Um, if you have an intercom system or any kind of radio system, make sure you hit that immediately. And I'm back up a little bit. This should all be in place. So one doesn't need to go looking for all of these things during the fire. We should already know where everything is. And this is the purpose of the training, is to prepare for an emergency event like this and put up emergency numbers, test your system, have drills. These are all things that we want to be prepared for an event. It's unlikely, but being prepared is so it's such a better position to be in when something like this happens. It's much better than reacting, panicking, and then creating more of an issue. So during an evacuation, go to the nearest exit. Um, be aware of any smoke or noxious fumes, and this is the truth. Most victims suffocate. So having a plan of action, having have in your mind, okay, if I work primarily in this department, I know where the fire extinguishers are. I know where the exit routes are. If I have to get out of here, I know exactly how to do this. I know who to call, and I know exactly what to do. So evacuation should include close all the doors within reach, crawl on your hands and knees, and don't use the elevator. Use obviously the fire if there is stairs. Get away from the flames and smoke, and use any kind of blankets or shields that you may have. And know what to do in an emergency. Planning. I recommend doing a drill at least twice a year. Okay. Why twice a year? Why not once a year? Why not 4 times a year? I think at a minimum, twice a year is sufficient. But if you have a very large facility or a campus, I would do it in sections. But I would definitely want to do regular emergency drills. And the reason is you have a lot of turnover these days in most companies. There's all kinds of things that can happen during these drills. I do a drill every year at the same place out in Azusa, and they have about 200 employees, and they've been growing over the years. So we've been adapting our drills based on their growth, and we've noticed that, wow, we found some big gaps. And as we were growing, we found that less people were leaving because for whatever reason they just couldn't hear the alarm. They didn't have clear instruction. We found some vendors on site last time we did this. The vendors didn't know what to do, and the vendors were some kind of construction company. And so there's all these things that went wrong this particular time because well, this is why we're testing the system. What can possibly go wrong? And we had a lot of work to do. That one event revealed so much to us and gave us so much stuff to do in terms of fixing the problems, ensuring our employees got out safely, putting processes in place to deal with vendors, and it really paid off. And I encourage each of you to do these drills. Prepare for emergencies, earthquake drills, tornado drills. Work with your local fire department if you can. These are all proactive approaches when it comes to fire prevention. Knowing what kind of material you have on site, addressing it, ensuring that you have fire extinguishers in areas that can be easily used. So workplace fire hazards, potential sources of ignitions, housekeeping. That's it. If there's one thing that I want to see every company in the world do, and I'm not exaggerating, is implement some kind of a 5S program. Some companies call it 5S, 6S, or 7S, but please consider doing it. If you're not aware of a 5S program, go to YouTube and Google 5S. There's a lot of resources out there. It's such a great program, and you just need the basics of it. And it focuses on housekeeping, and it really does uh, supplement a good fire prevention program. So knowing where your safety equipment is, knowing how to get out of a building safely. Imagine being at the location where you primarily work, where it's in an administrative area, if it's in a warehouse, or wherever it might be. Close your eyes and imagine, where's the fire extinguishers? How do I get out of here safely? If you can clearly imagine how to do that, and do it regularly, do it often, make sure that you know exactly where to go. Even if you're in the warehouse, or you're maybe you're in maintenance and you're all throughout the different locations, but do that. Know where your emergency equipment is. Know how to get out of a building. Know exactly what to do. They're called mental reps, and if you prepare for them, the likelihood of getting out safely is going to increase. I have seen too many people panic. Too many people just say, "I don't know where to go," and it's unnecessary, especially for you bigger companies. Prepare, plan, do training, get help from a consultant. Call ROI. We're happy to help you. Call your local fire department. I'm sure that they have some resources for you guys. But don't think, oh, we'll deal with it next year. We'll deal with it next year, or next quarter. We'll put it in our budget for next year. There really isn't much of a budget for this. Just do it. You know, don't be reactive. Don't have OSHA come in there and start issuing citations because you have a bunch of blocked fire extinguishers or no fire extinguishers, or you don't have a fire prevention plan. You need a fire prevention plan. This document isn't exactly required to be documented, but I highly suggest that you have some kind of documented procedure in place. A lot of companies are required by their local fire department to have a documented procedure that maybe they provide a template for. I think it's a good practice to have a documented fire prevention plan. It's something to look at. It makes things easier. I would highly recommend it. So this is kind of the 30,000-foot view of a fire prevention plan. This is not a full-blown training course. We provide a full-blown training course for your on-site training. We primarily do on-site training. So wherever you are in the US, we will come to you. If Zoom is better, we do Zoom, but we always prefer to do training on-site. My name is Jesse. I'm the owner of ROI Safety Services, as we are here to help make things that can be difficult a little easier in a common sense way to implement procedures, programs, and processes. Okay. We are committed to providing safety training to create zero injuries. That is my goal. Zero injuries, not 90%, zero. We want zero injuries. So please like us, comment. I'd love to hear some comments and feedback. I will be doing an interview with an OSHA inspector who has been with OSHA for, I think, over 25 years or so. And I look forward to doing this interview. Hopefully you can join us. And it'll be within the next few weeks. Have a blessed weekend. Thank you very much.